November 15th, 1942, Casernepaz, Tunisia. The morning air carries the distant rumble of engines across the desert landscape. American soldiers in olive drab uniforms check their equipment one final time, their boots crunching on the rocky ground. Behind them, a convoy of small angular vehicles waits in formation, the Willys MB, known simply as the Jeep. German intelligence officers had dismissed these machines in their reports as Spielzeugautos, toy cars. Wehrmacht analysts calculated that such lightweight vehicles, weighing merely 2,337 pounds, could never survive the rigors of mechanized warfare. They expected American forces to rely on heavier, more conventional military transport. But as the first Jeeps roared to life that morning, their distinctive flat-grille design cutting through the North African heat, they carried more than just soldiers and supplies. They carried the seeds of a logistical revolution that would reshape modern warfare. The Germans did not yet know that these toys would soon become the most sought-after prizes on every battlefield from Tunisia to Berlin. July 23, 1940, Butler, Pennsylvania. The Willys Overland Motors factory floor echoed with the sound of hammers and welding torches as engineers raced against an impossible deadline. The U.S. Army had issued circular proposal number 2699, requesting bids for a quarter-ton, four-wheel drive reconnaissance vehicle. The specifications seemed straightforward: a wheelbase of 80 inches, a payload of 660 pounds, and a top speed of 50 miles per hour. Karl Probst, Willys' chief engineer, had been given just 49 days to design and build a working prototype. His team worked around the clock, fueled by black coffee and the knowledge that American forces would soon need reliable transportation for a war that seemed increasingly inevitable. The initial design called for a vehicle that could traverse rough terrain while maintaining simplicity of operation and repair. Across the Atlantic, German military planners were finalizing their own vehicle strategies. The Wehrmacht had invested heavily in half-track vehicles like the SDKF Z251, which weighed over 8 tons and required specialized maintenance. German doctrine emphasized armor and firepower over speed and simplicity. A captured German planning document from this period noted, "Light reconnaissance vehicles are of limited tactical value in modern warfare." The first Willys MA rolled off the assembly line on September 21, 1940. It weighed 2,060 pounds and featured a 60-horsepower Continental engine. The vehicle could reach 65 miles per hour on roads and maintain 45 miles per hour across rough terrain. Most importantly, it required minimal maintenance and could be repaired with basic tools by soldiers with elementary mechanical training. By December 1940, the Army had conducted extensive field tests comparing the Willys design with prototypes from Ford and Bantam. The Willys vehicle consistently outperformed its competitors in durability and ease of production. What the test evaluators could not foresee was how this simple design philosophy would prove devastatingly effective against an enemy that had built its strategy around complexity and specialized equipment. March 12, 1941, River Rouge Plant, Dearborn, Michigan. Henry Ford stood on the factory floor watching as the first Ford GPW, government P for 80-inch wheelbase, W for Willys design, moved down the assembly line. Ford Motor Company had been awarded a contract to produce Jeeps using Willys specifications, bringing America's most advanced manufacturing techniques to bear on military production. The production statistics were staggering. Each Jeep required 2,337 parts and could be assembled in just 90 minutes using Ford's refined assembly line methods. The company had retooled entire sections of the River Rouge complex, the world's largest integrated factory, to accommodate Jeep production. Workers who had been building civilian automobiles just months before now focused their expertise on military vehicles. Production began at 50 vehicles per day in March 1941. By September, daily output had reached 300 units. Ford engineers had implemented time and motion studies to optimize every aspect of assembly. Workers used pneumatic tools that could tighten bolts to precise specifications in seconds. Overhead conveyors moved parts and sub-assemblies with clockwork precision. Meanwhile, German vehicle production remained rooted in traditional methods. The Volkswagen factory at Stadt des KDF-Wagens, later Wolfsburg, had been converted to produce the Kubelwagen, a military utility vehicle based on the Beetle chassis. German production peaked at approximately 30 vehicles per day, one-tenth of Ford's output by late 1941. The contrast in manufacturing philosophy was profound. German vehicles featured complex engineering solutions and required skilled craftsmen for assembly. Each German half-track vehicle needed over 200 hours of labor to complete. The Jeep, by comparison, required just 4.5 hours of direct labor time. Ford production report from November 1941 noted, current daily capacity exceeds 400 units with potential for expansion to 1,000 units per day, if required. The report proved prophetic. After Pearl Harbor, Ford would increase Jeep production to unprecedented levels, ultimately manufacturing 277 Soit 196 vehicles during the war years. German intelligence, analyzing captured American production manuals in late 1941, concluded that such figures represented propaganda rather than actual capability. They could not comprehend how democratic industrial methods could achieve such overwhelming production superiority. January 15, 1942. Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, Berlin. Oberst Heinrich Müller reviewed the latest intelligence assessment on American military vehicles. The report, classified Geheim, secret, bore the title Amerikanische Kraftfahrzeuge, taktischer Wert, American motor vehicles, tactical value. Its conclusions would prove to be among the war's most costly intelligence. Failures. The assessment dismissed the Jeep as unsuitable for serious military operations due to insufficient armor protection and limited payload. Capacity. German analysts compared the 237-pound Jeep unfavorably to the 8,500-pound STKFZ 251 half-track, noting that American vehicles lack the robust construction necessary for sustained combat operations. Miller's team had obtained detailed specifications through diplomatic channels before America's entry into the war. They noted the Jeep's thin steel body, minimal ground clearance, and absence of armor plating. The report concluded, these vehicles represent American industrial inexperience in military requirements. They will prove inadequate in European combat conditions. The German assessment reflected fundamental misunderstandings about modern warfare. Wehrmacht doctrine, developed during the interwar period, emphasized breakthrough tactics using heavily armored vehicles. German military thinking had not adapted to the reality that mobility and logistics would prove more decisive than armor and firepower alone. A separate Abwehr report from February 1942 estimated total American Jeep production at approximately 10,000 units annually. The actual figure for 1942 would exceed 359,000 vehicles. German intelligence had based their calculations on European production methods and could not conceive of American mass production capabilities. The Wehrmacht's dismissive attitude toward the Jeep reflected broader strategic misconceptions. German planners assumed that American forces would adopt European-style tactics, emphasizing concentrated armor formations. They failed to anticipate how American doctrine would leverage superior logistics and rapid deployment to achieve tactical advantage. By spring 1942, German forces in North Africa were beginning to encounter Jeeps in combat. Early field reports described them as fast but fragile, reconnaissance vehicles of limited military value. These assessments would soon change dramatically as the full scope of American logistical capabilities became apparent on battlefields from Tunisia to Normandy. The intelligence failure extended beyond mere technical assessment. German analysts could not imagine how democratic industrial systems could outproduce totalitarian economies through voluntary cooperation and technological innovation. November 23, 1942, Deburba, Tunisia. Lieutenant Colonel John Waters, commanding the 1st Battalion, 1st Armored Regiment, composed his after-action report by the light of a gas lantern. His unit had just completed its first major engagement against German forces. and the performance of their jeeps had exceeded all expectations. The battle had begun at dawn, when German Panzer IVs and supporting infantry attacked American positions near the strategic crossroads town. Waters' forces found themselves outnumbered and outgunned, facing experienced Afrika Korps veterans equipped with superior armor. Traditional tactical doctrine would have called for a defensive stand or organized withdrawal. Instead, Waters ordered his jeeps to execute rapid flanking maneuvers that German commanders had not anticipated. The vehicles' speed and agility allowed American forces to attack German supply lines while avoiding direct confrontation with enemy armor. Each jeep could carry a .30 caliber machine gun, bazookas, or radio equipment, transforming them into mobile weapons platforms. The tactical revolution became apparent within hours. While German half-tracks struggled with mechanical reliability in desert conditions, requiring specialized maintenance and spare parts, the jeeps continued operating with minimal support. American mechanics could repair most jeep problems using basic tools and improvised materials. Waters noted in his report, enemy forces appeared confused by our mobility tactics. Their vehicles could not match our speed across broken terrain, and their supply columns proved vulnerable to hit-and-run attacks. The German response to jeep tactics was telling. They began deploying anti-aircraft guns against ground targets, the only weapons with sufficient traverse speed to track the fast-moving American vehicles. German prisoner interrogation reports from this period reveal growing frustration with American tactics. One captured Panzer commander complained, "They refuse to fight properly. Their small vehicles attack our flanks and disappear." Before we can respond, German doctrine had not prepared officers for opponents who emphasized mobility over direct confrontation. The statistics supported Waters' tactical assessment. American forces lost 18 jeeps during the three-day battle, but destroyed or damaged 23 German vehicles while capturing significant enemy supplies. More importantly, the engagement demonstrated that properly employed jeeps could neutralize the tactical advantages of heavier German equipment. By December 1942, German forces in Tunisia were issuing new orders, specifically addressing the American fast vehicle threat. The jeep had forced enemy adaptation within its first month of combat. Operations, January 8, 1943, Berat, Libya. General Feldmarschall Erwin Rommel dictated an urgent message to Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, requesting immediate reinforcement with specialized anti-vehicle weapons. The legendary Desert Fox, architect of brilliant armored victories across North Africa, was discovering that his tactical genius could not overcome American logistical superiority. Rommel's message, classified Strenggeheim, top secret, outlined a disturbing tactical development. American light vehicles are disrupting our operational tempo through constant harassment of supply lines. Conventional anti-tank weapons prove ineffective against targets that refuse decisive engagement. The Afrika Korps commander was experiencing something unprecedented in his military career, an enemy that could not be brought to battle on his terms. The German predicament had emerged gradually through December 1942 and January 1943. American forces had increased their jeep allocation to one vehicle per 8 soldiers, compared to one German half-track per 30 troops. This ratio allowed American units to deploy reconnaissance screens, establish rapid communications, and execute supply runs that German forces could not intercept or predict. Combat reports from German units revealed the tactical frustration. The 21st Panzer Division reported, "Enemy reconnaissance elements appear and disappear before our forces can respond. Their vehicles operate in terrain considered impassable for motor transport." German armor, designed for European roads and open terrain, struggled with the rocky, uneven ground where jeeps excelled. The statistical evidence was overwhelming. American forces in Tunisia were conducting an average of 847 vehicle movements per day, compared to 203 movements by equivalent German units. This mobility advantage translated directly into tactical superiority. American commanders could concentrate forces rapidly, exploit enemy weaknesses, and withdraw before German counterattacks developed. Rommel's request for Flak 88 guns specifically to target jeeps represented a fundamental shift in German tactical thinking. The famous anti-aircraft weapon, previously reserved for tanks and aircraft, was now needed to counter American utility vehicles. This reallocation weakened German air defenses while addressing only the symptoms of American mobility superiority. The Desert Fox's communication concluded with an ominous assessment. Without immediate action to counter enemy mobility advantage, continued operations in North Africa will become untenable. Within 3 months, the Afrika Korps would surrender at Tunisia, ending German ambitions in the Mediterranean theater. German intelligence had finally recognized the Jeep's true significance, but recognition came too late to develop effective countermeasures. March 20, 1943, Medellin, Tunisia. Hauptmann Ernst Hoffmann received an unusual addition to his unit's equipment manual, detailed instructions for capturing, maintaining, and operating American Jeeps. The supplement, hastily translated from captured American technical manuals, represented the Wehrmacht's grudging acknowledgement that enemy vehicles possessed tactical value worth acquiring. The manual's introduction was unprecedented in German military documentation. American light vehicles demonstrate operational characteristics superior to equivalent German equipment in specific tactical situations for an army that had conquered most of Europe through technological and tactical superiority. Such admission represented a profound psychological shift. Hoffmann's company had been ordered to prioritize Jeep capture during combat operations. Intelligence reports indicated that intact American vehicles could be converted for German use with minimal modification. The manual provided specific guidance: remove American radio equipment, install German communications gear, and repaint vehicles with Wehrmacht markings. The technical analysis revealed why German forces coveted American vehicles. The Jeep's fuel consumption averaged 12 miles per gallon compared to 4 miles per gallon for German half-tracks. In an army increasingly constrained by fuel shortages, this efficiency represented crucial tactical advantage. Moreover, Jeep maintenance required tools and skills available at the company level. While German vehicles often needed specialized depot-level support, German mechanics studying captured Jeeps discovered design principles that challenged Wehrmacht engineering philosophy. American engineers had prioritized simplicity and reliability over sophisticated engineering solutions. The Jeep's transmission, for example, used basic gear trains that any soldier could understand and repair, while German vehicles featured complex mechanical systems requiring extensive training. Combat reports from March 1943 documented German units successfully operating captured Jeeps for reconnaissance and supply missions. The 10th Panzer Division reported, American vehicles demonstrate excellent cross-country performance and mechanical reliability under adverse conditions. However, captured vehicles could not address the fundamental problem. German forces lacked the industrial capacity to produce equivalent equipment in sufficient quantities. The most telling section of the supplement addressed American production capabilities. German intelligence estimated current Jeep production at 950 vehicles per day across multiple factories. This figure, while still underestimating actual output, represented a sobering recognition of American industrial superiority. Germany's total military vehicle production for 1943 would equal approximately 6 weeks of American Jeep manufacturing. Hoffmann understood the implications. His army was fighting an enemy that could replace losses faster than German forces could inflict them. The supplement's final section, titled Operational Security, warned against allowing captured vehicles to fall back into American hands, a tacit admission that German forces expected to retreat. June 15, 1943, Kursk salient. Soviet Union. Colonel Ivan Petrov submitted his technical evaluation of American Willys MB vehicles delivered under the Lend-Lease program. His report would convince Soviet leadership to request 51,000 additional Jeeps. making the vehicle the most successful Lend-Lease program in terms of units delivered relative to tactical impact. Petrov's analysis compared Jeep performance with equivalent Soviet vehicles, particularly the Gaz-67 produced at the Gorky automobile plant. The American vehicle demonstrated superior reliability, requiring 40% fewer maintenance hours per 1,000 kilometers of operation. More significantly, the Jeep's electrical system functioned reliably in temperatures ranging from 40 degrees to 120 degrees, conditions that disabled many Soviet vehicles. The tactical advantages were immediately apparent to Soviet commanders. Lieutenant General Vasily Trikov, commanding the 62nd Army, reported, "American vehicles allow rapid deployment of anti-tank guns and communications equipment. Their reliability under combat conditions exceeds Soviet equivalents. The Jeep's ability to tow 57 meters anti-tank guns across rough terrain proved particularly valuable during the mobile phase of the Kursk battle. Soviet mechanics discovered design features that revolutionized their understanding of military vehicle engineering. The Jeep's standardized bolt patterns meant that repairs could be completed using tools from any American vehicle. This interchangeability principle contrasted sharply with Soviet practice, where different vehicle models required specialized tool sets and spare parts. Statistical analysis revealed the Jeep's overwhelming superiority in operational availability. Soviet units equipped with American vehicles reported 89% operational readiness compared to 67% for units using domestic equipment. This difference translated directly into tactical capability. Commanders could count on their vehicles being available when needed, German forces opposing. Soviet Jeep units quickly recognized their tactical significance. Wehrmacht intelligence reports from the Kursk sector noted, enemy reconnaissance and supply operations have increased dramatically following introduction of American light vehicles. Our forces cannot effectively intercept or counter these rapid deployment tactics. The most dramatic example occurred during the Soviet counteroffensive at Prokhorovka. Colonel Petrov's regiment used Jeeps to deploy 76mm guns in concealed positions, attack German flanks, and withdraw before enemy artillery could respond. The tactic, impossible with heavier Soviet vehicles, contributed to the destruction of the 2nd SS Panzer Corps. Petrov's report concluded with a recommendation that would reshape Soviet logistics, request maximum possible delivery of American light vehicles. Their tactical value exceeds any domestic alternative. Stalin personally approved the request, recognizing that American industrial capacity could provide capabilities that Soviet factories could not match during wartime conditions. April 10, 1944. Portsmouth, England. General Omar Bradley reviewed the logistics annex for Operation Overlord, focusing on Section 7C, light vehicle deployment and maintenance. The document outlined plans to land 57,000 Jeeps during the first 90 days of operations, establishing a vehicle density unprecedented in military history. The planning statistics were staggering. Each infantry division would receive 443 Jeeps, each armored division 546 vehicles. Support units would operate an additional 312 Jeeps per division equivalent. This allocation meant that American forces would land 1 Jeep for every 12 soldiers, a ratio that would provide tactical mobility unmatched by any army in history. British planners, studying American vehicle allocations, requested clarification of the enormous numbers. Air Chief Marshal Trafford Lee Mallory questioned whether such quantities were necessary, noting that British forces planned to use 1 light vehicle per 30 soldiers. American logistics officers responded with detailed analysis demonstrating how vehicle density translated directly into operational tempo and tactical flexibility. The German response to intelligence reports about American vehicle preparations revealed growing anxiety among Wehrmacht commanders. General Günther Blumentritt, Chief of Staff to General Feldmarschall Gerd von Rundstedt, noted in his diary, "Enemy logistics preparations suggest operations on a scale beyond our defensive calculations. Their vehicle numbers alone exceed our total motor transport capacity. Pre-invasion training exercises demonstrated the tactical revolution that massive vehicle allocation would create. American units could establish supply dumps, evacuate casualties, position artillery, and maintain communications across extended frontages that would have required twice as many troops using traditional methods. The Jeep had transformed American military doctrine from personnel-intensive to equipment-intensive operations. Maintenance planning reflected the scale of the undertaking. American forces allocated 847 mechanics specifically for Jeep maintenance, supported by 23,000 tons of spare parts pre-positioned for the invasion. German forces defending Normandy had 412 mechanics responsible for all vehicle types, supported by spare parts inventories equivalent to 2 weeks of combat operations. The final section of the logistics plan addressed vehicle replacement. American planners expected to lose 30% of initial Jeep allocation during the first month of operations, but could replace these losses from production, arriving at 1,247 vehicles per day. German intelligence, studying captured planning documents, noted with alarm, enemy replacement capacity exceeds our ability to inflict attrition. Bradley's margin notes on the document revealed American confidence. Vehicle superiority should allow rapid exploitation once beachhead is established. Events would prove this assessment correct beyond all expectations. July 15, 1944. Caen, France. Oberst Hans von Luck received orders that would have seemed incomprehensible 18 months earlier. Redirect half of his regiment's Panzerfaust anti-tank weapons to target American Jeeps and other light vehicles. The order represented the complete collapse of German tactical doctrine and the triumph of American mobility warfare. Von Luck's 21st Panzer Division had been fighting continuously since D-Day, experiencing firsthand the tactical revolution created by overwhelming American vehicle superiority. His after-action reports documented a new form of warfare where traditional defensive tactics proved ineffective against enemies who could concentrate force rapidly and withdraw before counterattacks developed. The statistics behind the order were sobering. American forces in Normandy were conducting 12,000 vehicle movements per day, compared to 800 movements by equivalent German units. This 15-1 mobility advantage allowed American commanders to achieve local superiority at any point along the front while maintaining overall force economy. German observers noted tactical innovations that defied traditional military logic. American units would arrive in force at seemingly random locations, overwhelm German outposts, and disappear before reinforcements could respond. The Jeep's speed and reliability made such tactics possible by allowing rapid concentration and dispersal of combat power. Von Luck's personal observations revealed the psychological impact of American mobility. Our soldiers report constant stress from inability to predict enemy movements. Traditional defensive preparations prove useless when opponents can appear anywhere within hours. Though as Wehrmachts carefully prepared, positions became irrelevant against enemies who refused to attack predictable objectives. The Panzerfaust reallocation reflected desperate adaptation to tactical reality. German forces had discovered that destroying American vehicles was more valuable than engaging American tanks, because mobility mattered more than armor in the new tactical environment. A single Jeep carrying communications, equipment, or forward observers could direct devastating artillery strikes against German positions. Combat. Reports from the Falaise Pocket demonstrated the tactical transformation. During the attempted German breakout in August 1944, American Jeeps equipped with radios coordinated airstrikes and artillery fire that destroyed entire German columns. The Wehrmacht's traditional emphasis on concentrated armor proved useless against opponents who could call down firepower from multiple sources simultaneously. The most telling statistic appeared in von Luck's final report from Normandy. His regiment had destroyed 89 American vehicles during 2 months of combat, but faced replacement rates that made such victories meaningless. American logistics could replace losses faster than German forces could inflict them. creating a tactical environment where attrition favored the side with superior industrial capacity. August 25, 1944, Granville, France. Supreme Allied Commander Dwight D. Eisenhower composed a personal message to Army Chief of Staff George C. Marshall, reflecting on the tactical lessons emerging from the Normandy campaign. His analysis would reshape American military doctrine for the remainder of the war and beyond. The light vehicle has proven to be the decisive factor in our tactical success, Eisenhower wrote. German forces cannot match our mobility, and this advantage compounds itself in every engagement. The Supreme Commander had witnessed firsthand how American industrial superiority translated into battlefield dominance through superior logistics and tactical flexibility. The statistical evidence supporting Eisenhower's assessment was overwhelming. American forces had advanced 250 miles from the Normandy beaches in 79 days, a pace of territorial acquisition unprecedented in modern warfare. German forces, despite prepared defenses and shorter supply lines, could not contain an enemy that could concentrate overwhelming force at any point within hours. Eisenhower's staff had conducted detailed analysis of German tactical responses to American mobility warfare. Enemy forces had adapted their doctrine to emphasize mobile defense and rapid withdrawal, abandoning the static defensive positions that had proven effective against previous opponents. This adaptation, however, played to American strengths by creating the fluid tactical environment where superior logistics provided maximum advantage. The psychological impact on German forces was becoming evident through prisoner interrogations and captured documents. Wehrmacht units reported constant stress and fatigue from inability to predict American movements or prepare adequate defensive measures. Traditional German advantages in training and experience meant less when tactical situations changed too rapidly. For deliberate planning, Marshall's response to Eisenhower's message revealed the strategic implications of tactical success. The Army Chief of Staff authorized increased Jeep production to 2,100 vehicles per day, recognizing that mobility superiority could shorten the war by months or years. American planners were beginning to understand that industrial capacity could substitute for traditional military virtues when properly applied. German intelligence, intercepting fragments of Allied communications, recognized the scale of their disadvantage but could not develop effective countermeasures. Oberkommando der Wehrmacht situation reports from August 1944 acknowledged enemy mobility advantage appears insurmountable given current industrial limitations. Eisenhower's final paragraph proved prophetic. This campaign has demonstrated that properly equipped democratic armies can overcome any tactical or strategic disadvantage through superior logistics and industrial support. The Jeep had become the symbol of American military philosophy, achieving victory through odd technological and industrial superiority rather than traditional military virtues alone. November 3, 1944, Moscow, Soviet Union. Joseph Stalin signed Production Request SR 1944-1103, authorizing the Gaz factory in Gorky to begin manufacturing vehicles based on American Jeep specifications. The decision represented an unprecedented acknowledgment that Soviet engineering could not match American automotive technology during wartime conditions. The request followed extensive testing of Lend-Lease vehicles by Soviet engineers and combat units. Technical evaluation reports consistently demonstrated American superiority in reliability, fuel efficiency, and ease of maintenance. Soviet Gaz-67 vehicles required 67% more maintenance time and consumed 23% more fuel while providing inferior cross-country performance. Marshall. Georgy Zhukov had personally advocated for Soviet Jeep production after witnessing their performance during the Vistula-Oder offensive. His report to Stalin noted, American vehicles enable rapid exploitation of tactical breakthroughs. Our forces equipped with these vehicles demonstrate mobility exceeding German capabilities by significant margins. Zhukov's recommendation carried enormous weight given his status as the Soviet Union's most successful field commander. The OB production statistics revealed the scale of Soviet dependence on American vehicle technology. By November 1944, Soviet forces were operating 34,000 Lend-Lease Jeeps compared to 12,000 domestically produced GZ-67 vehicles. This ratio demonstrated both American production superiority and Soviet recognition of American design advantages. German intelligence, monitoring Soviet vehicle deployments, noted the tactical implications of increased American equipment in Red Army units. Wehrmacht situation reports from the Eastern Front observed enemy mobility has increased substantially following delivery of American light vehicles. Our forces cannot effectively counter rapid Soviet deployment tactics. Soviet mechanics studying American vehicles discovered engineering principles that revolutionized their understanding of automotive design. The Jeep's emphasis on simplicity and reliability contrasted sharply with Soviet practice, which often prioritized sophisticated solutions over operational practicality. American standardization allowed any Jeep component to be repaired, using tools and parts from any other American vehicle. The production request included detailed specifications copied directly from American technical manuals. Soviet engineers acknowledged that replicating American manufacturing techniques would require fundamental changes to Soviet industrial methods. The Gaz factory would need to adopt American assembly line practices and quality control procedures. To produce vehicles matching Jeep performance standards at Stalin's personal involvement in the decision reflected the strategic importance of vehicle technology. The Soviet leader recognized that industrial warfare required copying successful enemy innovations rather than relying solely on domestic engineering capabilities. The Jeep represented American technological achievement that could not be ignored or dismissed. The most significant aspect of the production request was its timeline. Vehicles matching American specifications would not be available until after the war's end, forcing continued Soviet dependence on Lend-Lease deliveries. May 7, 1945, Reims, France. As German representatives signed the Instrument of Unconditional Surrender, Allied staff officers compiled Annex 7 to the surrender document, a complete inventory of American vehicles in German possession. The list provided stark evidence of how thoroughly the Wehrmacht had become dependent on captured enemy equipment. The inventory documented 2,147 American Jeeps in German service, along with 1,203 trucks and 447 other American vehicles. These numbers represented more motor transport than many German divisions had possessed at full strength. Wehrmacht units had become so reliant on captured American equipment that their operational capability depended on maintaining vehicles designed by their enemies. Colonel Charles Codman, aide to General George S. Patton, observed the irony during surrender negotiations. The German army is surrendering to us using our own vehicles to transport their personnel and equipment. German logistics officers had become experts in maintaining American equipment, while their own vehicle factories had been reduced to producing wooden substitutes and improvised transport. The technical analysis revealed why German forces had prioritized American vehicle capture throughout the war's final years. Captured Jeeps averaged 94% operational readiness compared to 31% for remaining German vehicles. American engineering had proven so superior that enemy forces preferred captured equipment to their own domestic production. Maintenance records from German units showed systematic conversion to American standards. Wehrmacht mechanics had developed detailed procedures for maintaining Jeeps using salvaged parts and improvised materials. Some German companies operated exclusively on captured American vehicles, having abandoned their original equipment entirely. The surrender inventory included detailed condition reports on captured vehicles. Despite years of hard use under combat conditions, 89% of American vehicles remained operational compared to 23% of German equipment. This reliability differential had allowed German forces to continue operating when their own logistics system had collapsed. Completely. Post-war interrogation of German officers revealed the psychological impact of vehicle superiority. General Wilhelm Keitel acknowledged American production capacity made prolonged resistance impossible. They could replace equipment faster than we could destroy it. The Wehrmacht's traditional advantages in training and tactics had proven meaningless against enemies with overwhelming material superiority. The most sobering statistic appeared in the inventory's final section. German forces had captured over 8,000 American vehicles during the war, but had destroyed or abandoned more than 12,000 German vehicles in the process. This negative exchange ratio demonstrated that even successful German operations resulted in net losses of transportation capability. The Jeep had become the symbol of American victory, not through superior firepower or tactics, but through industrial capacity that made resistance ultimately futile. September 15, 1945, Detroit, Michigan. As victory celebrations continued across America, engineers at the Willys Overland factory began work on the final production run of military Jeeps. The vehicle that had begun as a desperate response to Army requirements had become the foundation for post-war military doctrine and civilian transportation development. The production statistics told the story of industrial triumph. American factories had manufactured 634 569 Jeeps during the war years, more than one vehicle for every 10 American servicemen. This production achievement exceeded the entire motor vehicle output of Germany, Japan, and Italy combined during the same period. War Department analysis revealed the Jeep's strategic impact beyond simple transportation. The vehicle had enabled American forces to conduct operations impossible with traditional logistics methods. Rapid deployment, flexible supply lines, and tactical mobility had transformed military doctrine from personnel-intensive to equipment-intensive operations. The civilian applications were already becoming apparent. Farmers, construction companies, and government agencies were purchasing surplus Jeeps for agricultural and industrial use. The vehicle's reliability and versatility, proven under the harshest combat conditions, made it ideal for peacetime applications requiring durability and cross-country capability. International recognition of American vehicle superiority was evident in post-war procurement decisions. Britain, France, and other Allied nations requested continued access to American vehicle technology for their own military modernization programs. Even former enemies acknowledged American engineering achievements. Volkswagen's post-war designs incorporated principles developed for Jeep production. The technical legacy extended beyond automotive engineering. American mass production methods, refined through wartime vehicle manufacturing, would revolutionize civilian industry during the post-war economic boom. The efficiency gains achieved through Jeep production provided templates for manufacturing everything from appliances to aircraft. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, reflecting on the war's lessons in his final report as Supreme Allied Commander, identified the Jeep as one of the three most important American weapons, alongside the C-47 transport aircraft and the atomic bomb. His assessment recognized that mobility and logistics had proven as decisive as firepower in determining military outcomes. The War Department's technical manual preserved detailed specifications for future reference, ensuring that hard-won knowledge would inform post-war military vehicle development. The document would guide creation of the M151 MUT and eventually the High Mobility Multipurpose Wheeled Vehicle, HMMWV, maintaining American superiority in military transportation for decades. As the last wartime Jeep rolled off the production line, workers attached a simple placard, Vehicle 634-69, Democracy's Answer to Tyranny. The inscription captured the vehicle's true significance, not as a weapon of war, but as a symbol of industrial democracy's capacity to outproduce and outlast any totalitarian system through voluntary cooperation and technological innovation. The Jeep story continued long after the last shots of World War II were fired. In Korea, Vietnam, and countless peacekeeping missions, variants of the original design served American forces and allies worldwide. The vehicle's influence extended far beyond military applications. Civilian Jeeps became symbols of American adventure and capability, while the manufacturing techniques developed during wartime production helped fuel the post-war economic boom. German military analysts, studying their defeat in memoirs and technical assessments, consistently identified American logistic superiority as the decisive factor in the war's outcome. The Jeep represented this superiority in its purest form, a simple, reliable tool that multiplied American effectiveness through superior industrial capacity, rather than sophisticated engineering. Today, the basic principles that made the Jeep successful, simplicity, reliability, and ease of production, continue to influence military vehicle design worldwide. Modern armies understand that technological sophistication means nothing without the industrial capacity to produce and maintain equipment in sufficient quantities. The lesson remains as relevant today as it was in 1945. In industrial warfare, victory belongs not to the side with the most advanced weapons, but to the side that can produce and maintain adequate equipment for the duration of the conflict. Sometimes the simplest tools prove the most revolutionary. What is your perspective on this part of history? Share your thoughts in the comments, because every memory and reflection helps keep the past alive.